let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome to the intersection of faith and the culture. It's WallBuilders Live. We're talking about today's hottest topics on policy, faith, and the culture, coronavirus, all that good stuff. Whatever the hot topics are, we're going to cover them. We're also going to be sharing some interviews with you that don't necessarily have anything to do with the virus. We don't want to think too much about the virus. We want to make sure that we're going on with our lives as best we can. And one of the ways we do that is we study the Constitution. We know what our constitutional rights are. We know what the foundation of our nation is. We know what the principles of liberty are and how to restore those things. And, you know, we're in tough times right now. We're not glossing over that. We're not ignoring that. I mean, this is very difficult on many, many people across the country, and both financially, physically, you name it. And so we want to talk about solutions as well. So we are going to have an interesting interview today that actually does get us back, I think, a little bit to the basics. An interview we did a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's going to be fun. I think you'll actually enjoy it. We mentioned yesterday what it was going to be, but we'll jump to that in just a minute. But I also want to encourage you today to check out constitutioncoach.com. Really talking a lot about that today and yesterday, because tonight at 8 p.m. Central and 9 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to have a live webinar that we're going to talk about the constitutionality of these quarantines, constitutionality of how our government's responding right now. A response absolutely is necessary, but we're going to talk about where those lines should be. And we're also going to talk about what you can do during this time period. What's our job as citizens? What can we, the people, do right now to make sure that we put ourselves in a position to pick up the pieces together and make our nation even stronger as we rebuild and restore on the other side of this thing? Clearly, we need to be talking about solutions right now in the middle of it, but we need to be preparing ourselves to rebuild and be even stronger on the other side of this. So be sure and join us tonight. You can sign up for that webinar at constitutioncoach.com. It is limited. We only have so many digital seats available on this webinar to be able to do that tonight. So make sure you get in there and get signed up and be one of the last ones to be able to join us. The registration link, again, is at constitutioncoach.com. That's constitutioncoach.com. All right, David, Jonathan, we'll have John Rigolizzo with us later in the program. And yesterday, we actually were talking, David, you were talking about working from, how'd you say it? Not sun up to sundown. It was can see to can't see. Can see to can't see. And so today's interview is going to be perfect for that. But we just thought it'd be really good for Jonathan to hear a little bit more about good work ethic, getting outside, working with his hands.
Right. Well, I can't learn it from you guys, so.
Oh, ouch. Ouch.
Oh.
There was a time. No. All right, so this is good for all of us, actually, and I think for our listeners as well. But this whole thing came about. We ended up with John on the program because he responded to Bloomberg while Bloomberg was still in the race. He'd been basically dissing farmers and anybody that really works for a living.
Well, when I saw the article came out and we all looked at it, I sent you guys back thinking, this is crazy. This is insane. And here's what Bloomberg said. And understand, I got an agricultural background. We still got the ranch, still do work on the ranch. So this is like, walking in front of you, smiling at you, and then kicking you in the teeth. It was ridiculous. Here's his comment. So Bloomberg, and I don't know who he was talking to. He was maybe in a room with all of his New York folks. I don't have a clue. It's New York City folks. New York folks, there's a lot of agriculture in New York, but not New York City so much. So he said, I could teach anybody, even people in this room, which seems like kind of a diss on them, but I could teach anybody, even you guys in this room, to be a farmer. It's a process. You dig a hole, you put a seed in, you put dirt on top, add water, up comes the corn. You could learn that. I go, oh my gosh, what you don't know, you just revealed your absolute ignorance of what goes on. I mean, just Bloomberg, if you've got the guts, hang with me for a month on the ranch, and let's see if you can keep up with me for a month. Let's see if you can make it through those 14-hour days that we do 6 days a week. Let's see if you can be, there's times we need to be a plumber, we need to be an electrician, we got to be a mechanic. Let's see if you can move all the stuff you have to do to get a field ready, all the stuff involved in harvest. Matter of fact, Jonathan, we kind of covered this at LTP at times, but let's go back over the concept of, in early America, how long did the school year last in early America?
It lasted for as long as there weren't things to be done on the farm, really.
Which meant you went to school about 3 months out of the year, wintertime.
What a glorious idea. Can we go back to that, please? Just without all the other parts.
So you go for 3 months a year, and you only go for 8 levels. That's all you went to school. So until the progressives got a hold of education in the 1920s, you're talking about school being 3 months, and you're talking about eight levels. And before you could graduate, before you could get your diploma, you had to take an exit exam. Now, the exit exam has...
I'm familiar with those.
you got exit exams, that's right. So you've got them on math, and you got them on science, and you got them on reading, and you got them on history and government. Part of what every kid in the state had to know was agriculture.
Yep.
So
we've got in our library, we have a 8th grade exit exam from the 1920s. This is out in the wild, wild west of Colorado at the time.
Okay, so this is all Colorado kids to get out of school, to graduate, to get a diploma. If you're going to be given a diploma, you've got a section that deals with agriculture. And so these are three months a year at school, 8 levels. Let's see what you got to do to get out of school.
Here we go. Why is alfalfa grown so successfully in this state?
All right, Mayor Bloomberg, what is your answer?
For Colorado.
I don't think he's going to have a clue.
All right, next one. Explain how a plant secures the food material and give the name of each element required for the plant's food material
He
absorption.
is now scratching his head.
I'm scratching my head, and I have the book.
The only word I know here is photosynthesis. No. Is it totally wrong? Okay, I don't know. I haven't a clue.
All right, here we go. For the next year's test, describe the proper care of milk. Oh, I know this one. You put it in the refrigerator.
Yeah, that's right. Not back in the 20s. Sorry, bro.
All right. In what way does tillage benefit the soil? It's like a massage, right?
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. You guys.
All right. Describe a simple experiment to show that plants need air in the soil. I thought air was in, like, the sky.
Yeah, that's what you think,
Discuss the importance of crop rotation. Heard about that. Name 3 breeds of the draft horse and then indicate the qualities of a good draft horse. How are seeds tested? What sort of corn should be selected for a dry county? Explain the part played by insects in cross-fertilization. Name 2 troublesome insects and give the remedies for controlling each. What is a hotbed and what are its uses? And how may the moisture in the soil be conserved? Also, what are some of the leading breeds of beef cattle? Name the 2 types or classes of hogs and state important differences between them. And lastly, name classes of chickens common in America and a few breeds of each class.
All right, every 8th grade kid in Colorado can handle that. So, Mayor Bloomberg, how smart are you? I don't think he's going to get those. And see, this is how absurd that was. But we were talking a little bit yesterday on the program, and I'll go back to it again. What I have seen with people raised in farm agriculture, ranching, and there's a difference between farming and ranching. You know, farming is more on the ground, and ranching is more what you put on top of the ground, not in the ground. So, and ranching generally means your soil is not such that you can harvest crops or plant crops. So we've got too many rocks, too many ravines, too many canyons, whatever. We're in agriculture, so we don't get to do any planting per se because you just can't till the rocks. You don't grow rocks very good. But you can't put cattle on them, or you can't
grow
put
rocks?
You can't grow rocks. They grow by themselves. We fertilize them when they grow.
So that's what I've been doing wrong.
You haven't been fertilizing the rocks. That's it. So we've got rocks all over the place. In our part of the country, if it's green, it's going to stick you, sting you, or bite you. It's just a hard place to work. So what I've noticed, people who are raised that way, they have much more common sense than the average person because they're able to do so many more things. You have to learn a little bit of everything to be an agricultural person. Again, you got to be a mechanic, and you got to be a plumber, you got to be an electrician, you got to be a carpenter, you got to be able to do concrete work, everything. They're really good at problem solving because that's what they have to do all the time. You can't look this stuff online and get a YouTube video on how to do some of this stuff. So observation thinking, they're really good at. They are better on consequences, causes, and effects. If political people thought more in terms of causes and effects, what Tim's always pointing out that Sowell points out, stage 2 thinking. Everybody's stage 1 thinking, here's what I want to do, but you don't ever think about stage 2. What effects that going to have? Their work ethic is so much more because, as I said yesterday, you go from can't see to can't see. So you're talking about a 14-hour day oftentimes. You're doing this for 9 months of the year. I mean, there's just so much in the way of character traits and endurance and hanging in there. And you may get knocked down 8 times. You'll get up 9. You get knocked down again. You get up 10. there's so much character that goes with this that Bloomberg clearly does not understand, but that's the elitist kind of mentality. What I do is really important. What you guys do is not. I could teach anybody to do what you guys do, but very few can do what I do. That kind of elitist stuff just drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what really drew our attention to it. It's one thing to say, I don't really know a whole lot about farming. It seems like this is all they do. It's another thing for him to have this attitude of, I'm so special and set apart, and it's just, I'm glad he's out of the race. It's just good.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. This is not the kind of arrogance. Now, you got to have some self-confidence to run for office. Anybody that does got to believe that they've got answers. But arrogance, no, that's a step beyond. And to tell anybody that I could teach you your job, that's crazy.
And just being dismissive of really what for many, many, many years was the backbone of our economy, and we could not survive without them even now. But the level of work and intelligence and work ethic and all of those things it takes to be successful in agriculture or ranching or any of those areas, to just dismiss that is an insult.
Well,
to
that's why it's going to be fun to have an actual farm person on.
Yeah.
Somebody who does this for a living, who wrote an article in response to Bloomberg's comments. We thought, all right, this is really good. We got to get this guy on.
John Rigolizzo. He's going to be with us when we return. Stay with us. You're listening to WallBuilders Live. Hey friends, Rick Green here from WallBuilders Live. And listen, I know that many of you are scared right now. You're scared this whole thing is going to get out of control and destroy your company, your job, your income, everything you've built over the last few years. And for many people, it's worse than even those things I'm describing. But listen, we do not live by a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. We can work through this, and we can be prepared to make sure that we don't destroy each other and our institutions and our liberty in this situation, but instead we put ourselves in a position to pick up the pieces and together make our nation even stronger as we rebuild and restore. And so Tuesday night this week at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have a webinar where we're going to be sharing with you what you can do during these times. I'm going to talk about the constitutionality of what's happening right now at the state and local level, at the federal level, and talk about what we the people can do during this time to be prepared to defend our freedom, defend the Constitution, and make sure that these timeless principles of liberty are kept intact for future generations. Be sure and join me. Go to constitutioncoach.com, and it'll have information for how you can sign up for the webinar. We have limited availability for this digital webinar, but it will be live, and we'll be sharing these things with you, and you will get some action steps on things you can do to make sure that we pick up the pieces and preserve freedom and rebuild our nation even stronger when this is said and done. Go to constitutioncoach.com today and sign up. It's Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. With the upcoming elections is an opportunity to change the direction of our nation for the better or the worse, to change the very future that our children will face. In previous generations, it was this concern for our children which often guided our vote. In a sermon before the Connecticut legislature in 1803, the Reverend Matthias Burnett reminded us, "To you voters, in whose power it is to save or destroy your country, consider well the important trust which God has put into your hands. To God and posterity you're accountable for them. Let not your children have reason to curse you for giving up those rights and prostrating those institutions which your fathers delivered to you. In this year's elections, for the sake of our children and the type of country that we will leave them, vote, and vote wisely."
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Welcome back to WallBuilders Live. Thanks for staying with us today. Pleased to have from New Jersey, John Rigolizzo had a great article on The Hill called What Mike Bloomberg Doesn't Understand About Farming. I know he's out of the race, but this article fits the political elites of today. John, thanks for your time today, man.
You're quite welcome.
Hey, you're a farmer yourself, and sort of this elitist attitude just rubbed you the wrong way. I think Bloomberg said something to the effect of, anybody can farm, you dig a hole, throw a seed in the ground, and water it.
Yeah, if it was only that simple, it'd be wonderful.
Yeah, wouldn't it be? But not the first time you heard that. You start your article saying, hey, that happened to you many years ago.
Yes, that's true. I even had a priest in church one time said that to the whole family when we were there, years ago, and the farmers just throw the seeds on the ground and God provides the food. Well, it was very simplistic. But that simplistic attitude is fairly normal, I guess, today, because there's really hardly any people in our general population that are as connected in some way to the farm.
That is so true. Even 20 years ago, I served on the Ag Committee in Texas in the legislature, and that was a topic we often discussed, was how few people have any relationship to. In fact, we started doing programs at getting public school kids out of the inner city, especially, to these livestock shows just to see milk isn't born in a carton, and to figure out what it's actually like to be from the farm or the ranch and see where these things come from. You're right. It's so few people actually have any relationship to it anymore.
And the connection is there's so much food available that nobody has to worry about that.
Right.
So the connection's just not there, compared to what it was at the turn of the 19th century, or the 20th century rather. And half the people who lived on a farm those days.
Even with the big corporate, entities in agriculture now, the American farmer still exists. I mean, you guys still work the land, and it's still a tough job. And as you mentioned in the article, it takes a whole lot more than just digging a hole. You got to be an expert in many different areas.
Correct. And you can't get away from it. If you're going to be halfway successful, you got to do your own things, from repairing your own engines and tractors to figuring out ahead of time what you're going to plant, how much, and then you got the market situation. The farmers always, we buy everything retail and sell everything wholesale. So it's, backwards. And, but that's how farming is today. We're dependent on the demand, more than the supply. And the supply from other countries sometimes gets in the way of us making a good profit.
Now, that's an aspect I hadn't thought of. The things you mentioned in the article, from having to be a plumber, electrician, mechanic, physicist, chemist, biologist, all those things I kind of thought of, but you got to read the market as well. You got to be a financial analyst so that you can make good decisions on how much to do and what to do this upcoming year.
That's true. And in my primary business of fruit and vegetables, you deal with the market every day in season. And some of the other guys that deal with the futures and things like that. Maybe it's a little bit easier to plan far ahead, but not necessarily. Any little thing, on the world stage affects the wholesale market, the world price situation. China, now the coronavirus. Maybe the supply chain is going to go down for some of the industries. And will the Chinese buy as much soybeans and corn as they used to? Or they promised to buy more this year with the new trade deal? It's all, it's up in the air completely. You might as well go to the casinos and have more fun.
Yeah, right. What does it say to you as a farmer when a lead politician like Bloomberg makes a comment like he did? Because that's not in a vacuum. I mean, most political elites think of not just farmers, but frankly anybody that really works for a living in that way. Unfortunately, I'm not saying all of them. I mean, there's really good people in the arena, and we're not try to be we try to be very positive on our program here because there are good people out there. But when the elitists say things like that, what does that say to you to how little they understand about what it takes to do what you do?
Well, it's something that I guess they're not aware of what reality is, number one. And number two, the only way to combat something like that is you can start with the children in school. And, we have these school to garden programs and things like that for the young kids. And they get a little bit of sense of it. But there needs to be more. There's so many other issues that teachers are mandated to deal with that they really don't have time for agriculture. They don't worry about it because there's school lunch programs and the kids go home at the end of the day. It's a problem that's not easily solved. And the only way, and I hate to say it, but the only way people will become more cognizant of their food and the food supply is if we have some major downturn economically or, medically or something, that people would be forced to grow or produce their own food or more of it. And you see now in Europe where they're restricting the poundage of food that people can buy every day in the grocery stores because they're worried about this coronavirus and the food supply. So I don't think that's going to last very long, but it's something to wake people up.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that actually leads me into my last question for you is, what does it say about the work ethic of the nation itself? Used to you had a much higher work ethic because, as you just described, I mean, people had to work for their food. They had to actually be a part of this process. And, I mean, we hear it all the time, the lack of work ethic, not just in millennials and Gen Zers. I mean, it's Gen X. It's a multi-generational challenge and issue. How much good would it do for the work ethic of the country if every kid in high school had to go out and spend a month working with you?
Oh, that'd be wonderful. It'd be wonderful for them. It might be a little bit of a headache to manage all that, but on the farm, but we could do it. I think that, if people had a chance to do that, it would be remarkable about how the way attitudes would change. It really goes back to the education thing. If people today have life very easy, they don't think about it, they don't realize it, but they have their food, they have their clothes, they have a nice house, the whole bit. And yet, I always said, you can take any farm kid, even if they don't work on the farm anymore, they will learn quickly and become productive and good at whatever job you give them. The opposite is not always true.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get good help today, especially young high school kids, where the farm is a good first job opportunity, but a lot of times they just don't have their heart in it because they go home and they have dinner on the table.
Yeah, man. Well, it'd be a good experiment to have, and not necessarily government forcing people to do it, but parents that are listening out there. Hey, man, what a great opportunity to do something good for your kid while they're growing up.
That's right,
and give them a chance to experience something like this. And I'm sure folks out there like John would welcome the opportunity to give them a little taste of reality.
Absolutely.
Hey, John, thanks for writing the article. I really appreciate you coming on the program with us today and sharing a little bit. Thanks for what you do, and thanks for being a great American.
Anytime. Thank you.
Stay with us. You're listening to WallBuilders Live.
Hi friends, this is Tim Barton of WallBuilders. This is a time when most Americans don't know much about American history or even heroes of the faith, and I know oftentimes for parents, we're trying to find good content for our kids to read, and if you remember back to the Bible, to the book of Hebrews, it has the Faith Hall of Fame, where they outlined the leaders of faith that had gone before them. Well, this is something that as Americans, we really want to go back and outline some of these heroes, not just of American history, but heroes of Christianity and our faith as well. I want to let you know about some biographical sketches we have available on our website. One is called the Courageous Leaders Collection, and this collection includes people like Abigail Adams, Abraham Lincoln, Francis Scott Key, George Washington Carver, Susanna Wesley, even the Wright brothers. And there's a second collection called Heroes of History. In this collection, you'll read about people like Benjamin Franklin or Christopher Columbus, Daniel Boone, George Washington, Harriet Tubman. Friends, the list goes on and on. This is a great collection for your young person to have and read, and it's a providential view of American and Christian history. This is available at wallbuilders.com. That's www.wallbuilders.com.
Welcome back to WallBuilders Live. Thanks for staying with us. Special thanks to John Rigolizzo for joining us all the way from New Jersey, back with David Barton and Jonathan Ritchie. All right, Jonathan, what'd you learn, buddy?
So apparently the food that I eat doesn't grow at the store. I didn't know that. No, I mean,
Nor did that milk come in that carton.
Yeah, I had no idea. I thought that I can't believe they would torture those poor cows like that.
Oh, no.
Going back
Joaquin Phoenix has invaded the studio.
Oh, man. R.I.P. those cows. I mean, going back to the Founding Fathers, all of those guys were agricultural guys. I mean, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. I've actually got a great quote. It's Thomas Jefferson writing to John Jay. Now, John Jay, he was one of those guys. He became Supreme Court Justice.
City guy.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting at. So it's basically, it's almost exactly like Rigolizzo's article to Bloomberg, but Jefferson writes to Jay, and this is in 1785, so it's pretty early on. He explains, cultivators of the earth are the most valuable citizens. They are the most vigorous, the most independent, the most virtuous, and they are tied to their country and wedded to its liberty and interests by the most lasting bonds. As long, therefore, as they can find employment in this line, I would not convert them into mariners, artisans, or anything else.
Yeah, that's the backbone of the country right there. And it's interesting, Benjamin Rush and Thomas Jefferson, several others had this discussion over when you're in the country, the morals are much higher, the crime is much lower, the work productivity is much better. It's the urban areas that they called Benjamin Rush called them boils on society. I mean, he said that's the abscesses on society. That's where all the poison goes.
Dallas.
Yeah, exactly. You look at the blue cities, you look at the crime rates, morality rates, the productivity rates, very different. You look at this overall in America, America's agriculture is 1% of America's GDP. And America produces a lot agriculturally, not because we're the best in the world. America is actually number 66 in the world in percentage of farmable land. So America's 66 in the world percentage of farmable land. We're 2 in the world in productivity with that small amount of land. And America every year produces enough food to feed the entire world. Now tell me you can do that, Bloomberg. I mean, come on. There is no way. And so you look at all the things that go into this. I really appreciate common people. That quote you had, Jonathan, from Jefferson was really, really good. He said, I would not try to convert farmers into any of these other things. What they do, what they bring to the moral table, what they bring to the work ethic, what they bring to the backbone of America, it really is key.
It's absolutely key. Thanks so much, Jonathan Ritchie, for joining us today on WallBuilders Live, and John Rigolizzo. Thank you, our listeners out there. I hope that you're with me tonight on our live webinar. It will be at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and look forward to being with you to talk about solutions, talk about the constitutionality of the quarantines and other things going on in our country, and talk about how we, the people, as citizens, can prepare ourselves now, make the most of this time to make sure that we're making our nation as strong as possible on the other side of this thing. Check it out today at constitutioncoach.com and get signed up. Limited seats available, and I hope that you're with us tonight. You've been listening to WallBuilders Live.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting.